Hi, welcome to my studio. Today I decided to paint an alla prima oil painting in my studio. It's from a photo that I took on a really beautiful hike a couple of weeks ago. And this is one of the few instances where I actually included my border collies in the painting, and that was really fun. Kind of adds some interest and fun, and it really records a very meaningful moment for me when we were hiking through these very high kind of a saddle between mountains, and there's views of the lakes, and it was just a beautiful day, and it was really fun to recall all of that while I was painting. I'm going to talk as you watch me painting. I'll tell you about a color that I haven't used in many years that I used today, and some of the challenges and some of the fun parts, and hope you can learn some from that. If nothing else, commiserate with the experience. If you like these kind of videos, watching me paint, I do a lot of vlogs on the trails. Consider subscribing. That would be awesome to have you in this community. It's a community that seems to be growing every single day. It's been really fun to have some comments and input, feedback from people. If you'd like to check out my art from the past and present, that's on my website, daniellekelly.art. And anyway, let's get into the painting. I appreciate you stopping. Thanks so much. So here's my palette, the colors I'm using. You can't see the Viridian green, but the Viridian is something I haven't used in years, but I saw it mentioned by another artist the other day on YouTube, so I thought I would pull it out. As you can see, there's a lot of green in this photo. I was really intrigued by the light and the composition in that photo, so I'm sketching in with just a little bit of thinned out yellow ochre. Trying to get the dogs in there. Just getting those right is the most critical. On the left is Henry, in the middle is Audrey, and the one I'm sketching now is Edna, my oldest one. And there's my favorite Rosemary and Company brush. I'm going to get the darks in there first, that big hill in the distance. This is a really cool spot to hike to. It's only about a 40-minute hike. It's a very rough and muddy trail. It's definitely not improved. But it's this huge open area where you can see a lake on one side and then a very far distant lake on the other side. There was a very dramatic sky that day, which was fun to paint. Skies, landscapes in general are not something that I have painted a lot, so I haven't done any. This is probably my first attempt at painting a big dramatic sky. I was using a lot of cerulean here, trying to capture how vivid those colors were. A little bit of ultramarine. This area is completely inaccessible in the winter. The roads just get blocked with too much snow. Just trying to get the shapes of those clouds in there. It was really cool the way they were all streaking down toward that hill. It made for a very dramatic effect. I'm really enjoying those Rosemary and Company brushes. They're softer than the hog bristle brushes that I've always used over the years. So it feels like I get a much more organic and fluid stroke with them, which is really nice for the alla prima painting. You can use a much lighter touch. In most of my years of painting, I would use thinner layers of paint. I'd let it dry in between painting sessions. and then would not really scrub in the paint, but I definitely would push the paint on in a much more mixed in way. So I used those more stiff hog bristle brushes. These brushes allow for a lighter touch, which is really nice for alla prima painting, or an impressionist, alla prima being all in one sitting, impressionist style being really focused on lights and darks and shapes. Using a light touch with the brush strokes, which is something I've been working really hard on. I think I'm getting a little bit better at it. Trying to sculpt that really gold green. It's not really grass. This is kind of a higher elevation muskeggy area. It's kind of boggy with all kinds of interesting little plants on the ground, but it had a very, very, really warm texture that day. I accidentally painted right over Henry's face. One of the hazards when you go just a little too fast. As I've been learning this alla prima impressionist style, I've had to learn to slow down and be much more thoughtful with every time I put down a color or a brush stroke. I'm trying to be a lot more mindful, because with the other style of painting, it was okay in the first session if I just kind of painted however and just threw the colors on there, because I would let it dry and then I could fix things and alter things in the later sessions. Now I'm trying to get that very, very warm, almost orange color of the mosses and some of the smaller plants that were in the foreground. And that reddish tinge gives it a nice contrast with all those greens. I'm using some cadmium red, cadmium yellow light, tiny bit of yellow ochre. For this painting, I found pretty quickly that too much yellow ochre. Oh, there's my number 6 Rosemary & Company brush. I found that the yellow ochre was just a little too dull and muddy for this particular painting. This was a really brilliant day. Our air here is just so crystal clear when it's sunny. Didn't want any muddy colors. And then I'm trying to get that trunk color, decided that was too brown. And there's just sort of a mound of just a chaos of little plants, tiny scraggly trees on that mound over there. Some of the plants had a cooler green color, so I'm putting some of that in there. And it's just a not quite dead tree, but a stunted tree. It's not quite alpine there, but with the muskeg, there's my littlest brush. That must be my number 4. The thing I like about these rosemary brushes too is they have a very fine, sharp edge. So I don't even use rounds most of the time for detail. I can just use the very, very sharp edge of these filbert shape brushes or the flat brushes to get the details that I want. I am using a mixture of cadmium and alizarin with a little bit of the viridian to get that dark. It's a nice tiny brush. I love this tiny brush. I think this is maybe the second time ever that I've used it. It's so nice for getting little details. And there's a few scraggly little tiny dead stunted trees over to the left there. Just trying to get some shape in that mound. Just kind of sculpting that area around Henry a little bit before I paint him in. that really dark color is really difficult to adjust if you make too bad of a mistake. So I'm trying to be pretty careful, but not too fussy. It's such a delicate balance between being very careful and accurate, but loose enough that the dogs don't end up looking stiff and awkward in comparison to the rest of the painting. Now I'm getting Audrey in there. I felt like I got her pretty accurate first try. I do kind of mess up her leg there a little bit, but I was able to cut it in later. And now it's Edna's turn. Just getting her shape in there. It was interesting the way all three of them were just standing and gazing off into the distance. It gives a very, just kind of an atmospheric, thoughtful feeling to the whole painting, I thought. Her little ears stick up. And then I thought I would put gold highlights on his back. That didn't work. I don't know why I thought that would work. Of course, it's going to be reflecting the sky color. I was just trying to be fancy, I guess. So just trying to sculpt his face with the green around it, having mixed success. But that's what painting's all about, putting things down and adjusting them, having a vision. What are you looking for? What would you like it to look like? It just takes some patience, reworking areas. With the dogs, I'm sculpting them outward and then using the grass to sculpt them inward to just adjust those edges till I get what I want. You can see the edge of my laptop there. I was using a photo that I showed you earlier on my laptop, and it was a little too far away for me to see the details of the dog, so I was holding it with one hand. Trying to put his little white foot in. I had to adjust that a couple times. I didn't get it quite in the right spot. He's almost completely black, so he doesn't have the interesting white collar that the girls have to be able to kind of give some interest. I think he has some white on his throat. I added a tiny bit of white toward the end. Trying to get the angle of her stifle correct. And they're shaping in, shaping out, just getting those edges looking better. Trying to get that border collie sweep of the tail correct. They tend to hold their tails very close and low. And get a little bit of her white legs in. Edna's white on her legs. Henry doesn't have any white on his legs. He has a white foot, and that's about it. The white on her collar, getting the blue on the shadow side. And then I accidentally put a big blob of green on Edna. I didn't mean for it to be green. I think my brush wasn't clean. That's another thing really important with this alla prima impressionist style painting. Make sure you have clean colors. Wipe your brush off in between switching colors. Don't be impatient. I have a problem with impatience, and sometimes I don't get my brush clean enough and I end up with a dog with a green blob on the side. I do fix that eventually. I find it that my problem with impatience is worse when I'm filming, because I feel like I'm taking too long when the camera is running. So I have to, it's a really good exercise. It's a mental exercise. It's almost kind of meditative. It's just, you have to focus so hard in any painting. It's just harder when you're filming. Before I film, I always tell myself, it's okay, you can always delete the footage. You could see when this filming session first started, my palette was on the right and my canvas was on the left, and then I switched it because I noticed the light was much better on the right side. I had a big window on my right and a softbox light on my left, but the window was doing a better job. But the light was changing, the sun was moving as I painted. Now I'm trying to get those shadows under them. So if you're doing shadows in a bunch of grass and little plants, they can't be sharp. You got to get them, looking like shadowed plants, not just a big blob of a shadow, which they look like right now. But I adjust them as I go. And then it's a good idea to move around the painting and not just hyper focus on one spot too long. I think I realized I was getting pretty hyper focused on the dogs, so I made myself move around a little bit. It helps to kind of almost give you a fresh eye when you go back to in this case the dogs, or whatever your focus of interest is in the painting. Get a little bit hyper focused and you can end up with a building that looks way more sharp and overworked than the rest of your painting because you're focusing too long on it. So it's a good idea to work on that one area for a while, then move to the background, move to the foreground, and just make sure that you keep your brush clean and don't get it muddy get your building colors mixed in with your sheep colors or whatever it is you're working on. I like the way Audrey's turning out. I was pretty happy with the way the dogs looked right then. Then I realized that I was missing these banks of trees that were in the background and just the little trees in the midground. Just brightening up that mountaintop a little bit. Getting a little bit more warm color in there. And then I realized for some reason I had some trees that got a little out of control on the top. So here come the little trees. And there's kind of an unusually just kind of straight bank of trees back there. So I'm putting in the darks. So I'm putting all the darks in the bottoms of the trees, trying to get that sense of shape. I kind of went too straight across with the tops of them, so after I get them in there, I go back and add in some of the meadow color in the back. See, right now that's what I'm doing to give that sense that you can see through the tops, see the meadow through the tops of the trees. So it isn't just a big blobby rectangle back there. And then there's just little spots of trees. There's a little scraggly tree there. A few little shrubs. So many interesting little plants up there. And then this block here, this almost triangular shape that I'm working on now, is a whole bunch of cooler shaped shrubs. Oh, I'm going back in the background again. Again, trying to get more shape in the tops of those trees. And then I work on the midground. So I'm trying to get that sense. There's a whole bunch of kind of round, full, fluffy shrubs over there. They're a little bit of a cooler green than the rest of the area. So I'm getting some titanium white, some cadmium yellow, using a little bit of my cooler greens. I think I saw a bright yellow tree over there near Henry. I did later go back and kind of soften up that yellow, that funny little yellow triangle area I just put in there just so it didn't look so separated. I'll often I have a little easel set up in my kitchen, a little display easel, and every time I finish a painting I set it there, and then I'm walking past it, doing chores, working in the kitchen, and I can look at it, and then I'll grab a brush and adjust this or that after I feel like I'm done. So I'm pretty much finished up now. I'm pretty happy with the results. Here it is. If you'd like to see more of my paintings, especially my oil paintings, check out this playlist up above. I really appreciate you stopping and watching. If you have comments, feedback, ideas that I could have done to make this better or easier, I'd like to hear about what you like to paint, where you like to go. Do you like to paint outside or mostly in your studio? I'd love to know if you have a website that I could look at, if you have a YouTube channel that I could watch. I watch YouTube videos of other artists every single day. A couple of my favorites are Ian Roberts and Malcolm Dewey. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Stay creative and have fun.